What is up, everybody? And thank you for once again tuning into the Iron Purpose podcast. We're at episode 10. This is episode 10 officially, and I couldn't be more excited to be where we are at. Thank you for tuning into this journey with me and being a part of the conversations that I have on here. We've got another great one for you today. Beautiful conversation that I had with an old friend of mine, Nik Speliopoulos. I've known him it's been a long time now. We went to school together and even knew each other before then when we were just kids. He is a sports reporter in the Rochester, Minnesota area, and we dive into his world of sports, kind of how he got to where he is and how he maintains that, how he handles the negative comments and the adversity in his life. He's a very selfless person, compassionate person, and I look up to him in a lot of ways. Super excited for this one. So without further ado, this is Iron Purpose podcast episode number 10, Nik Speliopoulos. Stay sharp, everybody.
Nik, how you doing, buddy?
I'm not too bad, Bailey. How about yourself?
Good, doing well. We were talking a little bit beforehand, but sounds like work's kind of trying to get back in the swing of things after the holiday season.
Yeah, I work in sports broadcasting in Rochester, Minnesota, so local sports is our bread and butter, and when schools take a break for Christmas break, it feels like there's this lull period of nothing, but then it was, I believe, 2 days after Christmas, the 27th, they start running hockey tournaments, basketball tournaments, and you get 2 days and snap, you're right back into it. Before you know it, it's just pedal to the metal, go, go, go. Winter sports are starting to enter the second half of their season, so we've got teams that are ranked, trying to stay that way as they head towards sections, make a run at a state tournament, et cetera, et cetera. We've got some teams that I'm excited about to cover come state championship time. We've got a girls hockey team that's number 1, number 2 in Class A. We've got a boys wrestling team, reigning state champs. They're probably going to get back there and be title contenders this year. We've got basketball teams left and right that could be contenders from Section 1 at the MSHSL level. So section tournaments are going to be here before we know it. State tournaments are going to be here before we know it. I'll be making trips to the XL Energy Center, to the Twin Cities to get more state tournament coverage done.
Dang, man. Yeah, busy guy. And how many people do the sports stuff where you're at? Is it just you and another guy, or how big is your team?
In terms of on-air talent, it's just me and one other person. We do have resources in our newsroom. We call them photographers, photogs. But they're videographers. They go out and they get videos for us. They help get games if they're big or whatnot on any given night. Excuse me. So it's more than just 2 people that go into the behind the scenes. But if you tune in, it's just me and him.
Okay, sweet. Do you cover any? Because I know you used to do some pro stuff too, like you were at training camp, or you were going to be at training camp, or for Vikings and stuff like that. Do you do that kind of stuff too? Is it more high school and?
No, it's also we do everything at the professional level. Being in Rochester, we're only an hour away from the Twin Cities, so It's not like we're traveling 5 hours just to go to a Vikings game. In terms of time and all the other logistics that go into that. So yeah, I've been to training camp. I covered the Vikings 49ers game early in the year.
Okay.
I was nice enough. My coworker, unfortunately, is a Packers fan. So it's this really weird thing. Little sidebar. He's from Nebraska, obviously. I'm a Nebraska fan, so we're best friends on Saturday. But come Sunday, we're worst enemies in terms of who we root for in our respective football teams. So it's kind of fun. It's easy to riff with one another. But he went and covered the Vikings-Packers game. So I was just like, you know what? You can have this one. I know you're a fan. It'll be a cool experience for you one way or another. So we each went to one game this year. I think last year our department went to 3 in total. It just kind of depends on the year in terms of what's going on at a given time, can we make it work? If we can, we'll do it. If we can't, we're not going to drop our normal responsibilities of covering local high schools. We've got a community college here in Rochester. We prioritize the right way, but it's nothing that is out of the realm of possibilities. Like last year, I was at Twins opening day. I went to a bunch of Timberwolves playoffs games. That was insane. Kind of disappointing where they're at right now, but fingers crossed they'll keep going on the up and up. So it's certainly a good mix of, the big bright lights, but also I love Friday nights just as much as I do going to a Vikings game on Sunday, especially in Rochester, some of these neighboring communities, because we broadcast pretty far into Northeast Iowa. Some of these tiny, tiny schools, tiny towns, they love their local sports, and their love of what we do is just so satisfying for me. Gets me out of bed every single day to do my job.
What a rewarding job too, especially when you are covering like those smaller towns who it's just all about sports. Like because everybody wants to hear about Justin Jefferson and the Minnesota Vikings, how they're doing though, the 14-3 season or whatever it was. But when you go into these little towns like that and you're talking about little Billy Bob or whoever, just some they who would call themselves no-namers, and you're putting light to what they're doing, and it's a kind of I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. But knowing as a kid, like even going to like Lake Region, the smaller school, and you'd see like a little clipping, hey, my name, I assisted a goal here, I scored 3 points in basketball. Like it was like the coolest feeling. So for you to be so passionate about getting in there and telling their story just as much as you would like a Vikings game, like that's got to be pretty sweet, man.
Yeah, I think one story to that, it actually happened last night. Friday nights are our big nights. We have, instead of a normal 10 o'clock show, we get 4.5 minutes, Monday through Thursday. Friday nights, we call it Sports Extra. We've got an extended period of time where we cover about 20 to 25 minutes of a show on a Friday night. Excuse me. So last night we covered 4 girls basketball games, 3 boys basketball games, and then we went to a girls wrestling invitational. Girls wrestling up and coming in the state of Minnesota. 5 southeast Minnesota schools met in Lake City, and they just wrestled one another. There were no team scores. It was just individual on individual, and scores, because there was no team scores, I had to get in touch with the coach about how did this one specific match end? And he just took 15 seconds out of his night. He's done coaching. He's done facilitating a 5-team invitational. He probably wants to go home, start his weekend, whatever. But he took 15 seconds out of his night to say like, hey, thanks for coming. We really appreciate it. These girls really appreciate it. They knew when the camera was in the building, and they had a lot of fun. And that to me is plenty. To do that for them, for other kids, for any town, that's what makes it fun. And we don't get the thank yous all the time, and that's okay, because we don't do it for the thank yous. But when they do come across our desk, it really is heartwarming.
Absolutely, that's awesome. And not doing it for the thank yous too, and just trying to find a way to highlight these kids. And that in and of itself, kind of like you just said, it is rewarding. It's very rewarding because because I work in a jail, totally not relatable. I mean, and we try to influence these people for the better. They come in and they're kind of at rock bottom at that point. It's like, all right, I'm gonna try to put my best foot forward, and I'm gonna try to inspire some kind of purpose and some kind of hope in this person. Every now and then you get the thank yous of like, man, my life was turned around when I came in there. Thank you so much. And sometimes you're going to get the people that just keep coming back and keep coming back. You're like, man, what are you doing? Does it mean that I stop trying? If that person's not going to thank me, do I just give up and say, you know what? Screw you, man. You're on your own. Or same for these kids. If they're not going to thank you, it's like, okay, what am I even doing here? See you later. It's like, nah, you're going to keep trying, even if you're never going to thank you ever again. And even kind of relating to this podcast, it's like, I will find myself sometimes looking at TikTok or looking at Instagram, like, come on, I really want to get over this many views or something. And I have to like stop myself and say, I'm having a lot of fun being able to talk to people like this. Like I've known you for a long time. So to be able to just connect with you like this and talk with you on a random Saturday, it just it doesn't happen normally. So like I gotta sometimes put it away. Like, hey, it's okay if you don't get all these likes, and enjoy just the moment as you take it, because somebody might learn from the conversation that we have, but kind of selfishly and most importantly for me, it's like I'm learning from it and I'm having a great time with it. So if nobody's liking it, nobody's saying thank you for anything, it's like I'm just soaking up the moment and loving every bit of it.
Yeah, I mean, for both of us, right? We played sports in high school. We love sports, to watch as entertainment. We're naturally competitive people. It is human nature to be competitive, to want to hit X amount of numbers, likes, clicks, what have you. And there's nothing wrong with that. It switches though when that becomes an obsession. That's the only thing that you're focused on,
Mm.
and you completely disregard, why you originally started to do this. If I get so self-involved in numbers and attention, so to speak, it takes away from the whole reason why I got into this.
Mhm.
I love sports at its core. It's not about me. I love sports, and I'm going to tell the stories from a freshman in high school to Justin Jefferson in the NFL and everything in between. One of my
Mm.
biggest mentors in college said, you treat everything like it is the Super Bowl. He, in his professional career, has done so many cool things. And Saturday night, he worked, or it was either Saturday or Monday, either the day before or the day after. He worked a high school event, and the Sunday between was the Super Bowl. And you have
Wow.
to go into every day and treat it like it is your Super Bowl. And that applies to everybody, no matter what your daily job looks like. Could be me in broadcasting, could be you in your employee role. You have to treat everything like it's a big deal. Because if you give half effort for something that you deem isn't as important, well, that might be very important to that person. You never know. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, but you just have to treat everything like it's a Super Bowl.
Hmm. Where does that come from for you? You said like it may be important to that person, so you have to treat it like it is. You still hear me? Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I thought I lost you. Um, you have to treat it. You have to give your best because it may mean a lot to somebody else. For you, where does that come from as far as caring for somebody else? Because what if somebody says, "Well, I don't really care about what anybody else is doing. Why would I want to?" Kind of get what I'm saying? And that's kind of a
Yeah.
deeper question, but
No, and that's definitely okay and a point of this podcast. I think, you know, it might be misconstrued in my industry that we do this for ourselves. We do this because we're on TV. I don't see it as this big, flashy thing. I understand that I have a platform and that I have more exposure to communities than someone else might on a given day,
hmm.
but it's not about me. I've never made this about me. I've done some really cool things in my career, but I've tried to, at least in my mind, never be look at me, I'm doing this, I've done that, I've accomplished X, Y, and Z. It's not about that and the selflessness. Again, I love going to these small communities on a Friday night for 9-man football. It's not, Edina, it's not Eden Prairie. They're not turning NFL kids every single year, but they love their community, they love their school, they love their kids, and that passion is honestly infectious. And for me to just be a tiny slice in perpetuating or growing their love, their passion for their community, team, kids, etc. It's so awesome.
Absolutely. And you mentioned selflessness in there. Was there a point in your life where you found yourself as a selfish person and went, "What am I doing?" And there was kind of like a turning point for that selflessness, or is that something that's always kind of been with you ever since you were a kid?
Well, I mean, I talked about human nature earlier. There's just certain things about being a human being in a sinful world that we have tendencies, whether it's competitiveness, selflessness. I'm not, or selfishness. I'm not going to sit here and say I've never been selfish in my entire
Right.
life. I'm sure you could talk to my mom, my sister, my friends. There's been moments in my life where I have been selfish. I think it just really got drilled into me when I was in college
Mm,
that this isn't, if you were going to enter this workforce, it is not about you. It will never be about you. Don't think that it will. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time.
hmm
And I took that as something to just be forward thinking of, because if I slipped into that realm, then I'm going to get the burnout. Then I'm going to be dissatisfied with what I'm doing. Then I'm going to want to change my career or whatever that might look like. So I've always kept that in the forefront of my mind to just remind myself it's not about me. You're doing this for a greater purpose than yourself. Even though it's in the world of sports, it might be kind of weird to hear that there's a greater purpose than just me. But it's really helped in my career because in this industry, most of the time you start at the bottom and you work your way up. And if you think that it's about you when you're in the beginning stages, well, it's not going to get any better when you try and move forward.
hmm And how beautiful is it too? And what a weight off your shoulders when you can take that off and say, I'm not going to get all the glory and all the whatnot. But I think on the flip side, that also prepares you for the negative stuff that comes because people are gonna they're gonna talk. It's gonna be good or great. And when you get that negative stuff too, you're like, hey man, it's really not about me. I'm just out here trying to highlight these people. And if you don't like that, like, it almost like solves the problem for you. It's like it's about them, not me. And if you don't like what I'm doing, then you don't like them, and then there's something really wrong with you because these are a bunch of kids just trying to go out here and have fun. Or like sports players, you don't like sports, then get off my channel, man. Like
Yeah.
go to the weather guy or something. I can think of it's really funny that we were this kind of got brought up because when I was younger, and I've tried to operate the same way. It's not about me, it's about other people, and it really does take that weight off of your shoulders. And I specifically remember a time in I think it had to have been high school. I don't remember what grade because you were just no, because my senior year you would have been a freshman, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I remember one time we were walking in the hallway or something, and we like to go back and forth or whatever with each other, and you were like looking down at me because you're just this huge individual as a eighth grader or whatever, ninth grader, and I was just looking up at you, and you were like, "Hey, I'm taller than you," and like for some reason I was like, "Oh yeah, well I bet I'm stronger and faster," and like you were like, "Okay," and that kind of went on, and I remember going into class like, "Why did I just do that?" Like he's taller than me. Why do I have to try to defend myself and make up for that? And so like even at a young age myself, like as like that moment was like a turning point in my life too. Like, okay, like who cares? Like if he wants to be taller than me, he's taller than me. I don't have to try to make up excuses to try to defend myself. Be like, oh yeah, well I'm stronger and I'm faster than you. So like, I don't know. It's cool how that just kind of triggered in my mind because it's not about us, and that's something that I just as I get older, as I continue to go through like my career and like moments like that have helped kind of shape me into who I am today working in the jail where people they're gonna spit all kind of nonsense at you and say all these kind of things and like I've been able to just like yeah, okay, whatever, man. Like it is what it is. And it all starts from little things like that growing up, like,
For
I don't
sure.
know. It's cool. It's a
No,
cool correlation.
and I like what you said there about that story of us in high school. Personally, I mean, I don't remember it, but it sounds pretty accurate. Um, but I think, I'm 25 years old. I didn't hear this phrase until I was 25 years old. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm,
Um, I'd never really thought about it like that, but you know, to bring it back to that story, right? I'm taller than you. Well, you're comparing that, and that's your thief of your joy, or that's
mm,
theft of your joy. And you can say that you're stronger and faster than me. Both were true. And, I could let that take away, my joy. And I think that applies to so many different things in life. It could be, relationships, it could be personal possessions, it could be job opportunities, what have you. Um, but it really is a powerful phrase that when you start comparing things, yourself to someone else, a group of people to a different group, a community to a community, you're just stripping everything of the joy that each possesses.
Mm. And it's cool that you brought that up, man. 'Cause I have a friend who actually is here right now. She's here. Courtney's having a baby shower today, so I got to hang out with my brother-in-law and or my brother-in-laws because they're not allowed to be at the house. So she came up, and her life dynamic is it's just a little different than people say, like the regular path. Like she's like, well, all these people are married and they have kids, and I'm not there right now, and that's all goes back to that comparison thing, especially nowadays on social media. People are like, well, they're having kids, he's got an awesome job and all this stuff. And I was sitting in the sauna the other day after a workout, and I have this tattoo on my arm that it's a mountain range, and it says "see you at the top," and it's been a phrase that's been really instrumental in my life and helping my mentality and whatnot. But I was looking at it, and I was like, I wonder where I'm at in my life. Am I here on this peak, or am I down in the valley somewhere, or where am I on this mountaintop or this mountain range? And it got me thinking, like, sometimes people are so focused on their job, they're so focused on being a dad or being a for me it was being a police officer. I wanted to be a police officer so bad that I couldn't think of anything else. And recently I've been reading a book too, and kind of following the lead singer of 10th Avenue North, Mike Donahue. He's been really, like, I guess, preaching. People are so focused on wanting to be a doctor, and he's like, I don't think God has is focused on as or cares as much about what it is that you're doing, but rather what you are doing with that thing. And so I wanted to be a cop for so long, and instead of thinking about being a cop, it's like, what are you going to do when you become one? What kind of cop are you going to be? And coming back to this, I was like, well, where am I on this right now? I wanted to be a police officer so bad, and I'm not anymore. And God just kind of spoke to me in the sauna. He's like, this is right where you're at, man. This view, this is where you're looking at. Like, don't try to figure out where, Johnny and Steven are at in their lives, and they've got 10 kids and they've got a wife and stuff. It's like, just enjoy the painting as a whole. Like, and if you can find the joy in every day, kind of like you were saying, like, that comparison is gonna rob you of it. And when you can find, where am I happy? How can I help other people? How can I be the best person for myself and for those around me, regardless of my situation? Like, that's when things are going to start clicking. When you're able to just give that up and say, it's not a, sure, you can have goals. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it's okay to have goals, but, and like you said earlier, like when you get so focused on those things, the rest of them can kind of, I don't know, snuff out snuff snuff out the flames to where you're so focused on that, and it just, you kind of lose sight of what your purpose is and what every little day can look like. And you're like, man, well, I'm not adding up to anything. And people just get so focused on that and that comparing. And when you're able to just sit down and go, okay, how can I be better today than I was yesterday? Then these don't matter anymore. It's taking in that entire view of that beautiful mountain range, going, wow, I'm blessed to wake up and crawl out of bed with 2 legs and 2 arms, and brush my teeth with my hands, like, and breathe like with 2 lungs. As long as we have breath, like, there's something to be thankful for, and there's something to keep striving for. So I got a little long-winded there, but it's cool how different things that you're saying connect with stuff that I've been thinking about, in the past couple of weeks.
For sure. And I mean, I've said a lot of phrases in the first 20, 30 minutes of this podcast episode, but another one, and this is something that I've always said, success is a self-determined word. Success to me means something completely different than it means to you, than it means to listener A or listener B or listener C. If you can find something in your life where you feel successful, that's it. You've done it. If someone else wants to say, well, why aren't you doing something bigger or something better? It's not up for them to determine if you are successful or not. It's a self-determined word. And like you said, it's okay to set goals. It's okay to strive to be better than you were yesterday, than you were a week ago, a month ago, a year ago. But you have to be focused on the growth without letting it take away from the growing period. Because it's not going to happen overnight. I spent 4 years in college working to become a professional. First college broadcast, not great. They're somewhere deep in an archive that I don't want to touch. But then as a sophomore, it gets a little better and you're doing a little bit more. Then as a junior, then you take a big step and you do X, Y, and Z. Then as a senior, all right, this is your final year. Let's give you the most opportunities if you want them. Let's put you on these platforms, these responsibilities, because you've put in the time and the work, and I don't know, day to day, you don't see it, you don't feel it. But next thing you know, fast forward to 2025, 7 years of doing this, a lot better than freshman Nick 2017. Sometimes you see the growth, sometimes you don't, on a day-to-day basis, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. And it kind of goes back to what you said earlier about, treat every day like it's the Super Bowl, like give it that much effort. And some people, they go into a job interview or they're fresh, like you said, as a freshman trying to cover a college game, and you're like, okay, this is my Super Bowl. I can't mess this up. Like but it's like put in the effort as if you are competing in a Super Bowl. But if you lose, like the sun's going to set that day and it's going to come right back up the next day with fresh opportunities. Like it is what it is. And so when you can have that effort of playing in a Super Bowl, like don't forget to look around, and enjoy the crowd, enjoy the moment while you're there. Like you said, I don't, how did you say that with the growth? You said focus on the growth, but you said something like focus on that growth, but don't forget about the growing part of it. Like it's kind of like trust the process, enjoy the process.
Yeah. Again, another, cliche phrase. I've probably got 20 of them in the bag, but
keep them coming.
it really is like that though, where, you might not see it on an every single day-to-day basis. You might not be able to look at, okay, this 10 o'clock show on Monday night, how was I better on Tuesday night? How was it better on Wednesday night? You're not going to see such a tight window of time. But if I go back and I watch last year's Vikings game when I covered Chiefs Vikings in the 2023 season compared to when I covered the Vikings in 2024, I'm sure it's leaps and bounds better, because in that year of growth where I'm doing other shows covering state tournaments, high school games, what have you, there's just growth that you don't notice. But a year later, you get to US Bank Stadium, you're like, okay, I've been here before. I know this process. I know what I did right then. Keep going on that. I know what I need to do differently or improve on this time around. And then you just turn it loose and let it rip.
And there's so much power in that too. Like knowing, like if you take a look at it and you see the negative and you see the positive, you say, okay, what did I do right here? Okay, I'm going to store that in my pocket. And what do I need to do better? What do I need to focus on later? Like, because then you don't see it as a defeat or a failure or, I'm a screw up. It's like you admit that, hey, this needs improvement. It's not a failure. I'm just going to work on it a little bit more. And it's also like if somebody were to call you a name or say, you suck as a sports guy, like you can either look at it and go, no, I don't. Or like, is there any truth to what he's saying? And if there is, let's look at it. Let's get to the bottom of it. Let's correct it. And now we'll move forward. Like this, if people are going to chirp and you're able to turn it around for like positive things, like it's either it's A, it's true, or B, it's not, but I'm going to work on it if it's not.
For sure. And I don't know, in this industry, we don't, having keyboard warriors are not an uncommon thing. And there's some that stick with me more than others. But I just remember there was one it would have been in the spring. It had something to do with I didn't talk about the men's national championship basketball game, and got comments that, why didn't you talk about that? You suck. You're a loser. What have you? But then I was kind of like, at first it made me mad. I was like, well, I did all these things. What's the problem?
Mm-hmm.
And then I went and I looked at our other competitors' stations and, what they did that night. And, I could pause in that moment and compartmentalize the work that I did, the effort that I put in that night, and be okay with that. I was okay that I didn't talk about the men's national championship game because we did by far the most amount of local sports coverage. And again, I talked about prioritizing earlier.
Mm.
Sometimes it's not about big, super huge things. It's about these local high school kids. Now, if there was a Minnesota tie somewhere in there, of course I'm going to mention it. But there wasn't. UConn won their second straight national championship, and it is what it is. Like,
Right.
But to just not let those things get to you, to not eat at you, you have to have a thick skin in this industry because you'll get a lot more hate than you'll get in terms of love. People aren't afraid to tell you when you're doing something wrong, and they'll never tell you when you're doing something right. Obviously, that's not 100% true, but the main thing, like, you're not getting great jobs from your viewers every single night.
Right.
Again, not something that I need to go back to the office the next day and do my job. But it's just, there's gonna be things in life that don't go your way, or that someone doesn't like how you do it, but you just trust your gut, and if you can live with that decision, rock with it.
Was there any? Did they prepare you, or I suppose like as you went through school, this was stuff that you were gonna face. Like they're probably like, hey, just so you know, there's gonna be some stuff you're gonna, there's gonna be comments and whatnot. Did they have any training like that for you to kind of go to put that off, or is there stuff that you do to stay sharp so that that stuff doesn't bother you?
No, I don't think there was like a, handling comments 101 in college or anything like that, but I think it's definitely something that professors would impress upon us as students, but also, as a freshman and sophomore, I'm trying to soak up all this information from upperclassmen when I was a freshman and a sophomore, and you really just, as an individual, piece by piece, put it together. And I think, what was the second portion of your question?
Um,
How did I?
Yeah, so if you're not if they haven't like learned, if there wasn't like a 101, trash talking 101, how do you kind of stay sharp on a daily basis to make sure that stuff doesn't affect you? Is there any
I think
routines or anything that you do, or is it just kind of it's in your nature to just let it go
I
or to
think
roll with
every
it?
day, like, I know it's a possibility that comments will come, um, and at the end of the day, you just have to let that person get it out. It sounds really weird to just, you have to take it, um, and know that sometimes people are just talking to talk. If I can, like I did that night of the men's championship game, if I can sit at my desk and I can look at what I did, what else was going at, did I miss anything? How could I have been better? It's at that point, it all becomes factual. If there are things that I could have done better, that's on me. I have to swallow that pill. I have to eat that. That's on me. But if I can look at it and say, well, I didn't really miss anything. I don't know what I could have done to make it leaps and bounds better. You just have to compartmentalize and say, yep, I did enough today. And
Mm-hmm.
that's completely okay. And I think, I don't know, you just do something over and over and over again for years, it kind of just becomes a second nature that
Mm-hmm.
you have. I don't wake up and, I'm not brushing my teeth and, okay, how do I do this how do I handle this mean comment that's going to come my way today? Um, I try and be as prepared as possible for the day of work ahead of me. I make lists of every single local game happening in our area, so I need to have it in front of me on a piece of paper. I can't look at a Word document. I can't look at a website. And then I can look at the list and say, boom, 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 boom. These are the important ones. We'll get these ones today done. Um, and if you can be as prepared as possible, so you're aware that these things are happening, they're
Mm-hmm.
important, get to them, you'll be just fine. Now, if I was passive, if I was lazy, if I didn't want to put in that work, Like, take today, for example. There's a boys basketball game in Caledonia, Minnesota.
Where's that?
Exactly. Love Caledonia. Shout out the Warriors. It's a small town, southeast Minnesota, but it's the number 2 team in Class 2A, the Caledonia Warriors, against the number 9 in Class 3A, Stewartville Tigers, for boys basketball. Could be a really good game. But if I just see, oh, it's in Caledonia, like if I just let my brain say it's far away, I'm working later today. If I just say it's far away, I'm not going to go, and I disregard who's playing, where their teams are at in their given season, well, then I've failed right there. I try and be as analytical every single day so we can do the best job possible. Some days it's a grind, and that grind is okay. The whole point of iron purpose, iron sharpens iron. Some days are not going to be easy. Some days you're going to have to get out of bed and push yourself to do things that you don't want to do. You want to take the easy route. You don't want to do X, Y, and Z, but you should. And that's just a part of the process. Some days you'll succeed in those things. Some days you'll fall short. We're human. That's okay. But just truly remember that if you can put the best version of yourself forward, it's only going to help yourself and make those others around you. If it's something, in my case, my coworkers, the viewers, they're better for it.
Mm-hmm. You kind of brought it up at the end there with your coworkers. Is there like a camaraderie that's built through that, through that process of, you're going to, like you said, iron sharpens iron. Some days you're going to just get beat, to heck, and thrown in the fire, but it's going to refine you at the end. Is there a time where you're able to, lean on your coworkers and kind of, looks like maybe there is.
Well, for sure. When there's big things happening, whether it's, sports department doing a sports extra on a Friday night, reporter A doing a breaking news story on something, or covering this trial, we celebrate one another. And it's really cool when there's team coverage. Usually, I shouldn't say usually, sometimes it's, surrounds weather. When we've got 5 reporters out in the snow, we've got the weather team in the studio doing all these things. And, it really becomes a team aspect. And when we finish a certain show or a certain story, we can step away and say, yeah, that was pretty cool. Good job, guys. But it's just such a weird industry, right? Because I can make a list of everything that I need to do today, and after my 10 o'clock show, rip that sheet of paper off, crumple it up, throw it in the recycling bin, and it's brand new tomorrow. Like, very rarely do days stack on top of each other to get to where we are. Yes, there's seasons that can encapsulate X amount of games and playoffs and those types of things, but typically I don't talk about one team every single game that they play, every single night for the entirety of their season. That's just not how we operate. So it's kind of interesting when, like I said, you just wipe the slate clean and do it all again tomorrow. I don't know what a good example would be. Like, I'm not a construction worker. I don't break ground. I don't lay a foundation. I don't put up walls. I don't see a day-to-day process and 6 months later, here's the final project or the final product. It's a brand new day every single day.
Right. That's an awesome analogy, because some days you're going in there and you're pouring concrete, and the next day you're like, oh shoot, we got to get the windows. Oh man. So it's always just these houses just partially. That is your career. Oh, that's awesome. Are there ever days when they're like short staff, or say the weather guy or whatever channel calls in and they're like, Nick, we need you to cover this? Like, is that something that you guys do or no?
It really kind of depends on the day. I think the only time I haven't done sports coverage has been, there was one day in the winter last year. We got like 8 inches of snow. It was, a big big snow system moved through our area, and well, when it snows, all the games are canceled. I'm not just going to sit at my office and twiddle my thumbs for 8 hours.
Right.
Send me out in the field and do something. Another night, election night, that is the news department Super Bowl. There are no sports. So I'll help out where I can. It's looked different a couple of years. I'm helping this reporter go live in the field this past election in November, I actually anchored a show just because that's where I could best fill a role. So our team could have the best amount of coverage. I remember when I first started at KTTC in Rochester that there was a garage on fire, and I was the weekend sports reporter at the time. I was done with my sports duties that night. I just picked up my gear, went out to the garage fire, and did a live report. Just trying to be as flexible as possible, be the biggest team. I mean, again, bunch of cliches. Be a Swiss Army knife, be a team player.
Yes, sir.
Do what you need to do to be, again, it's not just about me. How can I make my station, our show, the best that it can be on any given night?
Love that. I wrote something down as you were talking. Where was it? Back to like the negative comments. I just want to touch on this real quick. You said let that person get it out. Like, and we talked about selflessness earlier, and what a selfless comment for like somebody to say they're just spewing all kinds of garbage at you, and you're just like, all right, you done? Let's give you a hug, buddy.
Yep.
To have that perspective of like, maybe that person just needs to get it out. Maybe they're having a tough day. They flip me off on the road. You're like, all right, yep. Hey, it's all right, buddy. I love you. Hope you're able to get something out of that. That's beautiful, man.
Right. I understand that it's easier for me to do because I won't see that person that sent an email. I won't see that person that called my desk phone. I never have a face-to-face interaction with them. I don't think I've ever had a face-to-face interaction with anyone, whether it was when I was in St. Cloud, Alaska, or here. So it's easier for me to just let it go. Again, they can be upset. We're human. We can't be in a million places at once. We can't have all the knowledge and information of every single team, every single game, every single sport. There's going to be things that we miss. We try not to, but sometimes that's just how it goes, and you just have to let it go.
There's a UFC analyst, and I cannot think of his name. It's not Corey Sandhagen, but it's another fighter that just retired, and he's in the analyst business right now. But somebody was like, "Man, you're washed up. You should retire. You suck." And he was like, "No, how does that make you feel?" He's like, "Would you say that to my face?" And the person responded like, "No, you'd beat the crap out of me. That's why I said it on here." And then he was like, "Fair enough." Like, yeah, people are gonna chirp, and they're not gonna want to say it to your face. Even that same person that chewed you out online, like you said, keyboard warrior. He's probably gonna be a different person in person. So I don't know. People are crazy, man.
And again, it's like I said, I understand that it's easier because there is no face-to-face interaction. But the biggest thing too is I don't just, this is a negative comment, send it to delete. Like, I read what they have to say, and then I decipher if anything in their paragraph is true. If there's something that I could have done better, learn from it. Because then that's on me for ignoring criticism. It's not constructive, but if I ignore criticism, well, I'm not going to make myself better. I'm not going to make others around me better. We're not going to learn. We're not going to improve. Then you just stay stagnant.
Right. So what, this whole sports, what is your title? Sport, not analyst. Was it analyst?
I would say my technical title, sports anchor / reporter.
Reporter, okay. When was this instilled in you? Like, where did it come from to where you're like, this is what I want to do? I know you said you really love sports, but I know we kind of talked about what you're doing now. Kind of take us back a little bit to time when you were a little bit, I was going to say smaller, but you've always been a tall fella.
Yeah. Um, I
How did
mean,
you get to where you are today, if you don't mind me asking?
yeah, I'll try and keep it somewhat brief. It's a long
Hey.
story, but I think I don't know why I remember this so vividly. Um, I was playing Mustang baseball in Brainerd Parks and Rec. We were at practice one day, and I don't know why, but coach just kind of sat us down and had a little heart to heart with a bunch of 12-year-olds and said, like, hey, you're probably not going to be a professional athlete. At the time, Joe Hag wasn't a star at NDSU, getting drafted by the Colts and whatever. Um, and I don't know why I realized at 12, yep, probably not going to be a professional athlete. I mean, as long as I can remember, I always wanted to watch sports, listen to sports, play sports, always. It's just my entire life has been, for a lack of better terms, I love competition.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know why it resonated with me so much that, right, every little kid that likes sports wants to be a professional athlete.
Mm.
I don't know why it resonated with me at such a young age. And then I have to shout out my fourth grade teacher. Uh, Her name is Renee. Um, she kind of put that idea in my head. I was like, well, yeah, that's kind of cool. I mean, it's no surprise that I can talk. I'm extroverted. I have no problem approaching a random passerby, a fan, a coach, a player, if I need to. And I was like, well, I like sports. I can talk, make those two things come together. So it's always been, 14, 15, 16 years old when you're in high school. What do you want to do? What do you want to study? What do you want to be? That was always the answer. There
Mm.
wasn't an ebb and flow in what I thought I wanted to do or a career that I wanted to pursue. That was always the plan. And through the college tours, I probably toured close to a dozen. When I was in high school, I landed on St. Cloud State, an hour away from my hometown. Um, Fantastic program. Um, a lot of great resources, whether it was professors or just technology that they had at their fingertips, and underrated in, I would say, in terms of, I guess, program recognition on a national scale.
Mm-hmm.
Um, 4 years in, 4 years out, and then ran into some hiring hiccups once I graduated college. So that was summer of 2021. Not in the heart of COVID where everything was shut down in 2020, but still kind of dealing with some of those COVID consequences, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Hit a stall in my hiring process, and in the television news world, they rank every market number one Los Angeles, all the way down to 210, biggest to smallest. And I was just, at that time in my life, I was so frustrated with comparison is the thief of joy. I'm on social media. My friend just got this job. Another classmate just got this job. Like every one of my friends in college was going off and starting their career. And I got really frustrated. I was like,
Mm.
why am I not? What is going wrong? So I literally started at the bottom, 210, North Platte, Nebraska. Look it up. If they have a sports job, apply. If they don't, move on. 210, 209, all the way up. I think when I stopped or kind of paused my application process, I was like in market 170. I mean, I'm putting out applications left and right, just churning through them. And I started my career in Fairbanks, Alaska. Market 202. That is pretty small start in this industry. I just packed up my bags and traveled two or 3,000 miles away, 3 hours time difference to this foreign land to start my career as a professional. Uh, Life as an adult, if you will. First time I lived alone. I had roommates in college my entire time, so I never knew what that was like. Bought a car, like all these different things. So a lot of growth came out of Alaska, and then I was there for a year and a half, and when I was in Alaska, I went 14 months without seeing my family, mom, dad, sister, friends, in Minnesota. And that was when I saw them again for the first time. I was like, wow. It was really powerful and it was really moving. And that was a defining moment where I was like, so this is what proximity to home means.
Mm.
And this is how much I care about proximity to home. I saw an opening in Rochester, Minnesota. It's 3.5 hours from Brainerd, but that's the same amount of time it would take me to fly from Fairbanks, Alaska to Seattle. So it's all about your perspective. And when I saw the opportunity that I could return to my home state, I jumped on it immediately. Very blessed that I got the offer and I'm back in Minnesota. And that's where I've been since April of 2023.
Okay, so coming up on 2 years now, huh?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's cool when you can see that as a kid, kind of like, this is what I want to do, and I'm gonna figure out a way to get there, at some point. And it's cool too that you were, like a lot of times when people say, you're never gonna go pro, you're like, oh man, and it's a defeating thing for you as a young kid to kind of understand that, maybe I'm not, but I can still be involved in what I want to do. And one of my previous guys that I had on here, Kenny Dussault, he's a key coach's mixed martial arts. And from his frame, he's a smaller guy, and he's like, at a young age, I knew that I wasn't going to go pro. I wasn't going to be a great athlete, but I still can figure out a way to get involved. And he went into coaching, where you were getting into, the reporting and stuff like that of sports. It's cool how a comment like that can put people down and make them feel like, okay, well, I'm never going to amount to anything. I'm not going to, especially that little small guy from a small town kind of mentality. And you're like, hey, all right, it is what it is. Well, I'm going to run with it. I'm going to figure out a way to get this, small town guy into a role where I'm still doing the same thing I would as if I'm in professional sports. And for you, like a guy like you too, to take it so seriously, like even if you're not in professional sports as a player, like you are just, I think I truly believe just as invested, or you are giving, like you said, you're giving your all towards it, like it is your Super Bowl, like you are playing in the NBA or like you are playing in the NFL, and you're just taking it with stride. Like there's a lot to be said from that. Like you should write a book.
Yeah, I can do on-air journalism. I don't know if I'm a good pen on paper type of journalist, but I look back on, that day at practice, or when I, started to say, well, I'm going to go to St. Cloud State and I'm going to study journalism, or I could look at my time in Alaska, and just, it really is kind of cool to see just how it's gone along. I understand that I might be a rarity in terms of, well, that's what I wanted to do. That's what I went to school for. I started doing it. I'm still doing it. I went to the same school. I didn't change my major, didn't transfer, didn't take a gap year, like all of these different things. And that's just my story. But other people's stories change. They might go through a rewrite, or they might change their trajectory entirely. And guess what? That's completely okay. One of my best friends from college, he had some academic issues when he was a freshman. He had to take a semester off, and he got frustrated with, being a semester behind from all of his friends and all of his classmates. And he really beat himself up for it. But my other two roommates and myself were just telling him, like, hey dude, like, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. Everybody's got a different story to tell. And just because your story is different than mine or someone else's doesn't mean, success is a self-determined word, it doesn't mean that you've failed. You can compare your story to others, think that you've failed, but you haven't. Your story isn't finished. You can continue the narrative that you want to write, what you want to make of your life. And, right, we're 19 at the time, like, we're just saying words. It didn't really sink in, but it really does hold value in everybody's got a different story to tell, and that's what I think is so awesome about this podcast is you've had so many different people on, but there's things that everyone can relate to in bits and pieces in each episode.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's cool. Like you said, like it's not, people try to compare their stories and it's like, well, this is a different book. Like it's going to go a different way. And even though it may be different books, like you said, there's still things you can pull out of it to help each other grow and help each other learn. That's awesome, man. I know we're kind of wrapping up here towards the end, but I got a couple questions for you.
Hit me.
So, and I know that you yourself are not a father, but I am getting real close. I got a couple months. I got my first boy he's due in March. So as a sports guy, you are completely immersed in sports, and I'm sure you see sports parents and all this stuff. What is your take on getting kids involved in sports? Is there, say I'm a huge football fan. Do you see people pushing their kids in to try to football or certain sports, or as a reporter, as an analyst, viewing the parents side of it? How would you recommend from that perspective to get a kid involved in sports?
You can be the biggest, as a parent, you can be the biggest sports fan in the world. You could have been a former athlete and when you were in high school, or you could have played at a higher level. But you can't force your kid, and it doesn't have to be sports. It could be music, it could be debate, it could be any form of like student activity. Just because that was your thing in high school doesn't mean that it's going to be your kids. Right? Like, again, as a human, like you could sit with your wife or your spouse, and you could sit back and you could think, oh wow, how cool would it be if our kid played this, and I'm tall, you're tall, we could, like, basketball players, and like it's easy to sit and think like that, but you can never force your kids into it. And you just have to let your kids be kids. Let them enjoy what they enjoy. Let them learn what they enjoy. Don't put them into a box before they can even make their own decisions. Because I see both sides, right? Like I see kids that their parents were athletes and they fell in love with the game and they're making the love of the game their own. I've seen other kids where, well, their parents were athletes, and so he only had this one track to go down, and he doesn't really enjoy it. He wish he could do different things, but he can't because that's what his parents did. That's what he's going to do. It might sound like cliche. I think it was, I can't remember if it was Starting Five or Receiver on Netflix, the documents of following these star athletes in the NBA or the NFL, but it's all about the love of the game. If you don't love the game, you're not going to have fun. You're not going to enjoy it. At that point, you're only wasting time of your life, and life is precious. So a really weird answer to your question, right? I feel the same way when I think about having kids. I want my kids to be athletes, but who knows, if they want to play the piano, they'll play the piano.
Oh man, that's awesome how it all comes back to our conversation earlier, and like it reminded me again of like when I was talking about the tattoo. Like I want my kid to be in football or this or that. It's like they're gonna find their craft, whatever it is, and just let them be kids, let them enjoy it. That was a beautiful answer. Well done, sir. I know you're a man of faith as well, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but is there like a certain Bible verse that's kind of resonated with you throughout your whole journey, and maybe it's changed, but right now, anything on come to mind when you think of a piece of scripture that's helped you to become who you are?
Yeah, I want to make sure that I have the right verse. I remember when I was in youth group when I was a kid, and I don't remember which conference it was. It might have been a state conference or it might have been a national youth conference, but we talked about John 15. And I've talked about, or growing up, I've done more than just the one study. in John 15, and it's just about the vine and the branches. With verse 1, I am the true vine and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be more fruitful.
Mm.
And that applies to so many different things in one's life. Right? He's talking about the relationship, as a follower, but it also can apply to things in the earthly world of life. It takes effort to produce growth or produce a product. It doesn't just magically happen. And there's a process to it. It's not perfect. You have to get rid of some of the ugly, even though you might like some of the ugly things in your life. You have to cut those off so you can bear more fruit. That's always been a passage that's stuck with me outside of, everybody's got their John 3:16, their Romans 1:16s. I really find John 15 a really powerful passage.
Beautiful answer. It really ties into what we've been talking about all day too, or all through this podcast, and that selflessness and because bearing fruit, that's helping other people. That's being the best you can be to help provide for other people and boost them up too. So it all just ties in, with what you've been talking about and who you are. So that's beautiful. That's a great answer. One more question for you. It might take a little bit of time, but I'm a huge Vikings fan, as you may know. And we've got a dilemma on our hands, and this is going to come out on Tuesday. So, God, I really hope, Lord willing, we'll get a victory, and we'll be talking about, everybody will be listening to this on a victory Tuesday since we're playing on a Monday night. But what do you think is going to happen with the quarterback position next year in your professional experience, in your opinion? What are we going to do? What are we going to do?
It depends on what day of the week I wake up and say, this is what I think is going to happen. This is what I want to happen. I think initially I've been a fan of the idea of tag and trade. I don't hate the idea of trading JJ McCarthy and giving Sam that contract. Because we don't know what JJ's worth yet. He was drafted 10th overall, but we don't know if he's going to truly pan out to be. We could let that be some other team's problem, take in actual NFL talent for a lot of worth, for a lot of value. There's going to be a lot of teams that need a quarterback. This is such a political Switzerland neutral ground answer. But go back to last offseason, every Vikings fan, the NFL, why in the world does Kwesi and KOC sign Sam Darnold? He wasn't good with New York. He wasn't good with Carolina. He wasn't good with San Francisco. Why? Why bring him in? Why do this? Well, Kwesi and KOC figured something out. The Switzerland answer now, whatever those two want to do, let them do it. If it's Sam Darnold, if it's JJ McCarthy, if it's Daniel Jones, there's some reservations with that one. Whatever it is, I'm just going to let it go. What they want to do, they will do. We'll rock with it. It's crazy to think that Sam Darnold, I'm not going to say Super Bowl quarterback, but could lead. I never thought Sam Darnold and deep playoff run were in the same sentence. I honestly didn't. When a training camp, KOC, I'm really high on Sam. He's gonna be good. Don't let the past determine the present. And he's just preaching all these things, and I'm like, really? Obviously, I'm not there every day, but I'm like, what is happening that I don't see, that I can't comprehend? And 14-3. We'll see. It's a really tricky spot to be in for the Vikings. The one tough thing about it is there's so much weighing on Darnold's performance in the playoffs to determine his future in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
If he loses the wild card round, well, they're probably not going to want to bring him back, which is wild to think, but that's just how the NFL operates sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you win the wild card round, then you go to the divisional. Well, what about where does the line change the farther you progress in the playoffs?
Right.
It's like you said, it's really unfortunate that we have to talk about this 2 days before the game is played, and we can't have a recap. But in terms of the game, I'm cool with it being moved to Arizona. I think it'll help the Vikings. A lot of snowbirds down in Arizona. Obviously, first and foremost, it's terrible and heartbreaking and gut-wrenching to see the devastation in Los Angeles. And it's hard to just, in the NFL, it's tough, but we got to move the game. Like, we're still going to carry on with our schedule, but sometimes that's just how this world works.
Right.
I just really want to play the Lions again. Like, it's always a good day when Green Bay loses. The only one that might change, like, I think that the Commanders could beat the Bucs. So then Washington would play Detroit in the divisional round. I just want to play the Lions. It's a sports cliche, but it's really hard to beat a team 3 times in one season. And I want that rematch. I want that revenge. The 31-9, it was a lot closer game than the final score reflected.
I would agree.
Going back to Darnold, I just he knows what Monday's game means in terms of his future as an NFL quarterback. I hope that doesn't make him see ghosts on Monday night, because I think he kind of had some yips last Sunday night. So,
yeah, what do you think the deal was with that? Why do you think what was the issue? Or what do you think? It seemed like he was missing some wide open throws, and I think he just got a little, I don't know if the pressure got to him, and quite literally the physical pressure of the defense able to get to him so quickly.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of different things. I think first and foremost, Detroit is not an easy place to play. Sure, they might not have the shiniest stadium. Like, they don't have US Bank, they don't have SoFi, they don't have Allegiant in Vegas. Like, it's Ford Field, it's a rectangle. They've played a lot of losing games in that building, but that fan base, now that they're successful, like, they are all in. They've rode through every low, and now that they are the number 1 seed, they are riding every high. They are passionate. It's a tough environment. You might not think it, but it is. I think, Sam, like, this was the first time that was the stakes were at its highest. And I think Sam hadn't necessarily had to think about what week 11 means in terms of the whole season outlook. Hopefully he can kind of put some of those reservations away. Like, hopefully he exercised everything he needed to week 18 to be, fruitful in week 1 of the postseason. Interior line didn't play great, but there's 11 guys on the field. Sam missed some throws short. He missed some throws long. I think TJ Hawkinson had some issues. I remember there was that play in the first quarter where he was wide open. Yeah, it was a little high, but he just let it go because he saw Kirby coming in hot, and I think he had a little PTSD. I think the defense played great. I wish Gink would have held on to that.
No.
There's so many different things, but like I said, that the score was a lot closer than 31-9 reflected. I think the NFC playoffs will be fun to watch this year. You have a 15-2 and a 14-3 as your 1-5. The Eagles with Saquon's resurgence, they're great. Rams, Bucks, they won divisions in some subpar divisions, but I mean,
Right.
Washington, Jaden Daniels, what a story. As much as it pains me to say it, but as a reporter, like Green Bay, capable of an upset or making a run. I don't know. Philly, Green Bay, don't like either team. One of them's going to lose. Good enough for me.
Sweet.
You know, I just think the NFC playoffs will be good. We can assume where the NFC or the AFC wants to go. We know the Chiefs will be in the AFC Championship. Roger Goodell will flip a coin. Heads, the Ravens will play. Tails, the Bills will play. We'll see what we get in terms of the AFC. I think there's not as much parity,
Right.
but that's playoff football. We hope that the Vikings can do something different than Blair Walsh in the 20-teens, than the Saints in 09, and Gary Anderson in 98. I mean, I wasn't even alive in 98. But I don't know. It's hard to act like a Cowboys fan. This year's different. I do feel that it is a little bit different. And it's different because it's not just 09 where it was 1 year with Brett Favre. The window is open, not just this year. It's going to be open for the next 3 to 4 years. If Kwesi hasn't proven it enough, I mean, Darnold, Van Ginkel, Cashman, all these additions.
Grenard,
Yes, Grenard. All these additions that he's made, the KOC that they have made as a combination. They might not look flashy. They didn't look flashy in the offseason. Like, why? Great. We brought the Minnesota kid back. Cool. We got some guy from Iowa that doesn't look like he should play football. Well, he's got 2 pick sixes and 11 sacks. He's the second player in NFL history to have 11 sacks and 2 interception return touchdowns. Like, I didn't expect that. No, I didn't have those on my bingo card. I didn't have Grenard having a better season than Daniil Hunter. Like, you just gotta ride with it. I think the other big thing, talking about the window, is what happens with Flores. I don't know. It's really interesting. I've got kind of my own thoughts and opinions on it. I think he should stay as the defensive coordinator. Like, be successful before you take a head coaching job. Like, not saying he's not successful now. Again, self-determined word. But, I'd rather be a defensive coordinator that wins 3 Super Bowls than be a head coach that makes the playoffs once. I don't know. It's kind of giving Ben Johnson vibes. Like, the playoffs don't work out this year. He'll come back for 1 more year, then feel it out again. I just don't want him to go to the Bears. I don't.
Right.
There's defensive pieces, and you've got Caleb Williams, and he's got all the intel on. I mean, these are the teams that he studies the most. Obviously, he's got a huge advantage on the Vikings. He's studied the Packers and the Lions the most. Like, he knows. I don't know if that's going to be his job to get, though. We'll see. There's so many different things, but this is why I love sports. You asked me this question, and I've gone on a long run. That's what happens when you get a communications major talking.
I love it. I love it, man.
But yeah, it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be a Vikings fan, a Wild fan, a Frost fan. Maybe the Timberwolves. Hopefully they can figure out their act as they turn into the second half of their season. And who knows what's going to happen with the Twins.
I wish I followed sports more. I'm a football guy and UFC. Like, I love UFC, but I think I need to dabble a little bit more in a couple other things, broaden my horizon, so I'm so passionate too. And I think if I got into, like, my wife would probably disown me if I got in anymore. So maybe I should just keep it to the 2. I get so distracted especially when sports are on and I'm watching. Like, if we're at a bar watching football or something, I'm like, everybody's over here and I'm just watching the TV. Like, come on. It's beautiful. It's fun stuff. Does Harry come back? Is this Harrison Smith? Is this the last season we see him? In your opinion?
So tough. If he doesn't come back, he retires. Like, I don't see him going anywhere else. Right? Like, you reach a point in your career, you've put in so much time blood, sweat, tears into one state, into one team, into one fan base. You build roots as a person outside of the world of football. Like, I don't see him going anywhere else. I think he's still got some ability left in the tank.
Mm-hmm.
It'll just kind of depend on, are the numbers right? Do you want to keep playing, or do you want to hang it up and be a family man the rest of your life? And there's no wrong answer. I think, well, the only wrong answer is if you go somewhere else. But no, he's been. I mean, you've always been a defensive kind of guy, right? You love Chad Green. Yeah, there he is, Chad Greenway. You're the reason LRCS had a 52 basketball jersey. Whether it was Chad Greenway or Harrison Smith, like, you've always loved the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Who I am as a person, I've always been a protector. I've always loved the offensive line, the details of their game in the trenches, protecting the quarterback so that they can make crazy cool plays on offense happen.
Absolutely.
So I don't know what's going to happen with Harry. Regardless, Minnesota, retire. Don't go somewhere else.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, cool, man. This has been so much fun. It's always a good time catching up with you and chatting with you, picking your brain on all you got in your noggin there. But yeah, it's been great to talk with you again, man. It's been awesome hearing your story, and I think you got nothing but big things coming your way, man. You keep up that selflessness, and a lot of people say, like, well, you're younger than I am, but I look up to you. But I do genuinely mean that when it comes to you. You've got a lot of great character qualities that I took all kinds of notes from stuff that you spewed out. Even those little one-liners and stuff. It's all beautiful stuff. So I appreciate you, man. It's been fun.
No, thank you for having me. And again, I know I said it earlier. It's just really cool what you're doing. It all started as a Facebook group, and now it's transformed and it looks like this. And whether it's your brother Jonas or your Aunt Rachel, like, you're bringing in all these people with a bunch of different stories, and that's the really cool thing, is we all have something to learn from one another, and you might not realize it when you start listening, but hopefully when you finish a given episode, you took away things that you either thought you were going to learn, or things that, I never thought about it like that before. So no, the pleasure is all mine. It certainly, I mean, the last hour and 20 minutes has flown by.
It goes by so fast. Where can people tune into your stuff? You gotta, this is your opportunity. Plug away.
So I work in Rochester, Minnesota. KTTC Channel 10, KTTC.com. I can provide you with links later if you want to tune in on a given night, 6 and 10 o'clock, Monday through Friday. Obviously, Fridays are the big days, but every day is my Super Bowl. So tune in Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays as well. I'm really bad at self-promoting. It's just not been a strong suit of mine. I don't like putting the lights on me and say, hey family, hey friends, look at me. Like, that's not who I am. But I'll get you those links, and viewers, listeners can do with it what they will.
Heck yeah, man. You got like a famous sign off you could hit us with?
Not really. It's funny that you say that, though, because when I mean, nowadays, right, our sports segment at 10 o'clock, there's a sponsor, and they call it the sports wall. It's a long rectangular monitor, and they call it the sports wall. And I just always say, that's it from the sports wall. We'll be right back. Like, that's Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday. That's my sign off. That's it from the sports wall. We'll be right back. Just a little blip. But when I was in Fairbanks, they were like, my boss was like, my predecessor had a thing. The person before my predecessor had a thing. She goes, you need a thing. I was like, I'm not creative. I'm a very linear guy. Go to game. Touchdown, interception, final score. That is the story. And she's like, you need to have a thing. I was like, what's it gonna be? I was like, I have no idea. But it was the Spelly Sports Report covering the action from around the interior. And I was just like, I felt uncomfortable about it because I was like, I don't really have anything else, but this is what I can bring to the table. She goes, nope, I love it. That's your thing. I was like, okay. And that was the thing for a year and a half. And then I got to Rochester and immediately dropped it.
Fair enough. So, what'd you say? This is the sports hour. We'll see you later. How'd that go?
That's it from the sports wall. We'll be right back.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it from the Iron Purpose podcast. We will be right back. I love it, man. As always, appreciate you. We'll do this again sometime. You've got some, like I said, some good stuff. So we'll be in touch.
Absolutely.
All right, buddy. Appreciate you. We'll catch you later.
Sounds good.